I'm about to rank all 32 NFL teams heading into the 2023 season. Guys, this is going to be my first ever tier list on this channel. Like I said, I'm ranking every team in the league. I appreciate all of you guys tuning in and hope you're a fan of the new content. We're going to have the betting picks coming out, but my goal is to be able to introduce more streams and different types of content for everybody to enjoy. And yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. Now you will see here we've got 8 tiers on the screen. We've got Super Bowl contenders, legit threats, everyone calm down, teams I think people are putting up on the highest pedestal just a little too prematurely, wild card hopefuls, the name explains itself, sneaky risers, teams that might be flying under the radar that I think could have a good season, bad but fun, and then the opposite, bad but boring, and the Caleb Williams tier, the tier of the potential worst teams in the league. Now, these teams are randomly assigned. We've got all 32 loaded in here, and we're just going to go through one by one and put everyone where I think they go. So, with the Rams here, where are we going to start them? Let's go with bad but boring. I think they're going to be somewhere in the 5-6 win region, maybe 7. Pretty much their entire team is going to be the Matthew Stafford Cooper Kupp dynamic. Aaron Donald coming off the worst season of his career. He was injured last year. I think he's ready to coast in retirement. Sean McVay's a really good coach, but I don't see this team doing much. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they're going to be really good. I'm going to put them in wild card hopefuls because they're in probably the toughest division in football, the AFC North. But that defense, I think, is going to be outstanding. They were 8-2 in games J.J. Watt played in last season. Kenny Pickett has to continue to develop, but they brought in a lot of playmakers around him. And yeah, I think Steelers, like I said, I think they're going to be a really good team. I think they're going to turn some heads. Cincinnati Bengals, no doubt Super Bowl contenders. Now that is contingent upon Joe Burrow's health. If he's out for the season or if he plays but he's continually banged up, then obviously they will have to slide down. But if we assume Joe Burrow is at full health or even gets back to full health within a month, then obviously they're one of the 2 or 3 biggest Super Bowl threats out there. The New York Giants. The New York Giants had a really good season last year. They exceeded expectations. They got to the playoffs and they actually won a game against the Vikings, who won 13 games in the regular season. However, I'm not a huge fan of Daniel Jones. I know he was 6th in quarterback rating last season, but he threw less than 1 touchdown per game. Granted, they brought in weapons like Jalen Hyatt and Darren Waller, but I still don't think he's actually that good. I think he had the training wheels on. I think a lot of his success is attributed to Brian Daboll. Defense isn't that amazing. I think Giants fans will say they're wild card hopefuls, but I don't think they're making the playoffs again. And they can't be sneaky risers because people seem to be high on them. I'll go bad but fun just because, Daniel Jones is a dual threat quarterback. Saquon Barkley's pretty good. They've got some guys who can make plays, but I don't think they're going to do a whole lot. Now, this one I know is going to be controversial. Putting the 49ers in everyone calm down. Now, as I say that, they are still legit threats. Especially in the NFC, because there aren't many great teams out there. But my thing with the 49ers is Brock Purdy, yes, he played pretty well last season, stepped in, did better than anybody could have ever hoped for or expected. But he was still Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last pick in the draft, which means production aside or whatever you might think about him, he doesn't have a ton of arm talent. If he had a lot of arm talent, he was flying under the radar, they would have discovered it and he would have vaulted in draft stock. So it's a guy who doesn't have a lot of physical gifts, coming off of a torn UCL. It was in the last game of the season, but if he suffered it in week 4, it would have been a season-ending injury. So you've got a guy with a season-ending injury to his throwing elbow. He didn't have a bunch of talent to begin with. I just don't know how much I can trust that. I mean, Kyle Shanahan can't continue to play average, subpar, even backup quarterbacks and still win games and get to NFC championships and get to the Super Bowl. Shanahan's an amazing coach. This defense gave up the fewest points and fewest yards per game last season, but I think they've got to get a true quarterback in there. I mean, they tried with Trey Lance. That evidently is not working out, but I just don't think they can get to the Super Bowl, much less win it. So I'm going to leave them and everyone calm down. The Arizona Cardinals are no doubt Caleb Williams tier. They are a surefire first ballot Caleb Williams tier. And honestly, they should be hoping they do get him because then they would be able to trade Kyler Murray, get off that horrible contract. They would be able to use some of the picks they recouped in the trade with the Texans last year, maybe get Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 2nd pick after you get Caleb Williams. That would be a pretty good start to a reboot of a franchise. The Atlanta Falcons, I want to put them in bad but fun, but I'm going to put them in... No, I'll put them in bad but fun. Here's my reasoning. I would go bad but boring because Desmond Ridder I think is putrid and I think he's going to be terrible. No offense, Desmond Ridder. Just haven't been impressed from what I've seen. But I think Taylor Heineke might take over the starting duty at some point. And Taylor Heineke is fun. And they've got Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. They've got guys that can make plays. They rebuilt the defense. They did pretty well. So we'll leave them in bad but fun. The Baltimore Ravens are absolutely legit threats to the Super Bowl. No doubt about it. And they might even be legit Super Bowl contenders here if Burrow is injured. Now, even if Burrow's healthy, the Ravens still can win the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't like them in a postseason matchup with the Bengals. Excuse me. The Ravens can win the AFC North if Burrow is injured, but I wouldn't like them in a postseason matchup with the Bengals. But still, this team, I mean, you've got Lamar Jackson. He's back on a new contract, so anybody worried that he was missing games or he was sliding before contact, hopefully that's gone away now. You've got Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. That's the best crop of weapons that Lamar's ever had. The defense, ever since it acquired Roquan Smith, gave up the second fewest points and third fewest yards. I think the Ravens are going to be really, really good this season. This one's also going to be controversial, I bet, but the Buffalo Bills, everyone needs to calm the hell down. I mean, the Bills have been at the top of the Super Bowl odds for the last few seasons. Josh Allen's been at the top of the odds for MVP. The Bills are not better than they were last year or the year before. Simply put, they're not. They're not better than they were in either of those 2 years. They have never been better than the Bengals, at least in modern history. They have never been better than the Chiefs. So why would I rank them any higher this year? I think they've regressed. I think Josh Allen misses Brian Dable. He can be a one-man wrecking ball, absolutely, but he also has a lot of mistakes in him. His decision-making in the playoffs isn't the greatest. He's very turnover-prone. He's also become injury-prone because of how much they rely on him. The offensive line isn't amazing. They didn't replace Tremaine Edmonds, and that secondary that everybody thinks is so great, sure, it's probably in the top 10, but they had injury problems last season. Like I said, they're not better than Chiefs. They're not better than the Bengals, and they've gotten worse from where they were the last couple of seasons. The Stephon Diggs relationship also appears to have a rift. Everyone calm down. There's no way the Bills are winning the Super Bowl this year. The Carolina Panthers. I'll go bad but fun. Bad but fun. They're not going to be, I don't think they're going to be sneaky risers. I know some people are predicting them to get to 10 wins. I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be fun to watch a 5'10 quarterback. Frank Reich has had success with different quarterbacks in the past. Miles Sanders made a Pro Bowl last season. Brian Burns and J.C. Horn look like two young defensive studs. Bad but fun. They might win 5 games, but they'll have some good moments. Now, the Chicago Bears I'm really high on. And maybe sneaky risers is the appropriate tier, but I'm going to go wild card hopefuls because I think that's a legitimate goal for them, and I think they could win the NFC North. As a matter of fact, I'm picking them to do that. I'm picking them to win the NFC North. Now, they led the league in rushing yards per game last season. They were dead last in passing yards, but they went out, they traded for DJ Moore, a bona fide number 1 receiver. Prior to last year, had 1,100 plus receiving yards in 3 straight seasons, and last year he still had 900 despite having Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and PJ Walker as his quarterback. Khalil Herbert led all qualified running backs in yards per carry last season. They draft Darnell Wright, a tackle with the top 10 pick. They bring in Tremaine Edmonds to captain that linebacking core, and they beef up the front 7. This is a weak division, especially without Aaron Rodgers. Bears are going to be good this year. Mark it down. The Cleveland Browns, they're going to back themselves to be wild card hopefuls. Now, if you look, I've already got the Bengals here and the Super Bowl contenders. Ravens and legit threats, and the Steelers in the wild card. So that's 3 of the 4 AFC North teams. Can I really put the Browns here? I think they're going to be better. They're not going to be bad but fun. They won't be. And they're better than bad but boring. I don't think they can be sneaky risers because most people think the AFC North is the toughest division in football, as certainly one of the 2. So we'll leave them a wild card hopefuls, but am I picking them to win the wild card? No, I'm not. I mean, Myles Garrett is outstanding, but Deshaun Watson, you're really counting on him becoming a top 10 sort of quarterback again, and I don't see that happening. The Dallas Cowboys, legit threats. I know Dak Prescott led the league in interceptions last season despite missing a quarter of the year, but throughout his career, he's done a pretty good job protecting the football. Ezekiel Elliott is gone, but Tony Pollard looked pretty good whenever he was on the field. You brought in Stephon Gilmore to help with that pass defense. The run defense isn't amazing, but that's not the most important area of football in the world right now. You've got some playmakers on the offensive side of the football on the outside. What I do worry about more than anything with the Cowboys, honestly, aside from just their history of choking, is the coaching situation. I mean, Brian Schottenheimer, Kellen Moore had that offense in top 5 in yards and points for most of the seasons he was there. You get rid of him and you bring in Brian Schottenheimer, who in his 12 or 13 seasons as an offensive coordinator, his offenses have usually ranked right about 15th, so right in the middle of the league. And then Mike McCarthy, he's supposed to be calling plays, and he was a very good play caller in Green Bay, but we've seen him struggle and fail to cope with the responsibilities of being a head coach. You know, time management, situational awareness, all that stuff. He hasn't been good at it, and now he has the added responsibility of calling plays. That's what I do worry about with the Cowboys here. So can't put them in Super Bowl contenders, but I think they are legit threats in a weaker NFC. But one team that is not is the Detroit Lions. Everybody, just please calm down. What? The Lions won 9 games last season, so now all of a sudden they're 9th in Super Bowl odds? Give me a break. I mean, it's the Lions. They have had no expectations for the past couple of decades. Now they finally have them. They're probably going to wither under them. Yes, Dan Campbell has done a good job creating a culture there, but it's yet to see how he performs, how the team performs when they're actually expected to win games. I mean, they're minus money to win the NFC North. We got to dial it back. They gave up the 4th most passing yards per game last season, gave up some of the most points per game in the entire league, and with their offense being top 5 in like every offensive metric, again, they still only went 9-8. Are they going to be top 5 in every area on offense again? Is Jared Goff also going to have the best season of his career once again? The odds are against all of that happening. Everybody calm down. The Green Bay Packers, bad but boring. This team's going to go as far as Jordan Love carries it, and we just really don't know what he's going to do. They've lost some key playmakers on both sides of the football. They've still got decent talent. Like, they've got a lot of good players that you could plug into winning teams, but they don't have the top-end talent, especially at the important positions. So the Packers, bad but boring. The Colts, they're going to be our first team to go in the sneaky risers. No, they're not. I take it back. They're going to be bad but fun. They're bad but fun. And I'm going to reorder each one of these tiers at the end of the video, by the way. Colts are bad but fun. Anthony Richardson's going to make a lot of mistakes. He's really only got 1 season of starting in college. Yes, he played more than 1 year, but he was splitting time with Emory Jones, a quarterback, and most of the time they were running, not really throwing the football. We saw he had 1 horrible interception in his first preseason game. Things like that are going to happen. It's going to be part of his development process. The good news is Shane Steichen is the head coach. We've seen what he's done with young quarterbacks, namely Jalen Hurts last season. He should be able to bring the best out of him. They've got some good playmakers, although if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, that's going to be a huge loss for them. Colts are going to be bad but fun. The Jaguars are Super Bowl contenders, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to say it. They are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Doug Peterson is creating one hell of a culture down there. Doug Peterson, by the way, been to and won a Super Bowl, and he did it with Nick Foles as his quarterback. Now he's got Trevor Lawrence, who's a top 10 QB in the league, could be top 5 by the end of the season. Had a slow start to the year, but over the last 9 games, he won 7 of them, and he finished 2nd in touchdown to interception ratio. He won his first ever playoff game by coming back from 27-0, and then he takes his team on the road to the Chiefs, and they lose by 1 score late in the game, and they cover. That's really impressive. Now you add Calvin Ridley to this team. The last time we saw Ridley, he had 1,400 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, made 2nd team All-Pro, and it's not like he's been out with a devastating injury. He's just been at home, training, resting, recovering, getting his body ready. He is going to be at top physical shape. This team will be extremely good this season, especially with a weak AFC South. They could easily go 6-0 against the division, and then you look at the rest of their schedule. They have 5 tough games. 4 of them are at home, and 1 of them is in London, which is their second home. Jags could easily get the best record in the AFC this year. Don't count that out. The Chiefs, there is no doubt about it. They are the top Super Bowl contender. We're not even going to spend any time talking about it. The Chargers are wild card hopefuls, which it's unfortunate because honestly, their talent on paper, their on-paper roster is top 5 in the league. But they don't put it together. They don't execute in situations. Brandon Staley isn't proven to be a great head coach. They're injured all the time. The Chiefs are obviously in their division. Wild card hopefuls is a good spot for them, even though they probably should be aiming for more. Just like it's a good spot for the Dolphins here. Like I said, I'm going to reorder these at the end. The Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa, he's the biggest injury concern in the entire league. But when he did play last season, the Dolphins won a majority of their games. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle might be the best 1-2 punch in the league. Mike McDaniel had an excellent rookie head coaching season. The defense took a big hit when Jalen Ramsey went down, and they're inconsistent with generating pressure on opposing quarterbacks. So I think they're going to see a lot of up and down from this Dolphins team. They certainly have wild card potential, so we'll go ahead and leave them there. The Vikings, they're better than the bad tiers, and they're not going to be sneaky risers because they won 13 games last season. But they're not good enough to be everyone calm down. We'll put them in the wild card hopefuls as well. Kirk Cousins doesn't win the big games, so you've got a hard cap on what you can do. The Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison pairing is going to be elite, but that defense was bottom 4. I forget exactly where. I think they were bottom 2, actually, in passing yards allowed last season. Got rid of Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison's the backup. Remains to be seen how that works out. We'll leave him there. The New England Patriots, bad but boring. Everything they do, everything they achieve is going to be on the back of their defense. Granted, they could still win 8, maybe even 9 games, but nobody's going to look at them as a good football team. I'm out on Mac Jones. I think this is going to be his last year starting. I know Bill O'Brien's there, and that is supposed to help, but Juju Smith-Schuster is your number 1 receiver. If I had a perfect world, Juju's like my number 3 on a good day, maybe my number 4 receiver. So Jones is being dealt a bad hand, but at the same time, he hasn't really shown me much to make me think he could be a good player in a different situation. Now, on the defense, I love a couple of their players. Christian Gonzalez, probably going to be my pick to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Matthew Judon is a very legit dark horse Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But like I said, they're clearly the worst team in this division. I don't see, it's impossible in my eyes for them to win more than 9 games. I think 6, 7, 8 is much more likely. And they're not going to be exciting. Now, the Saints are the first team in the sneaky risers tier. And it's not because, I mean, most people expect the Saints to win the NFC South because the NFC South is probably the worst division in football. The Saints, the reason I put them in sneaky risers is I think people are expecting them to win this division with 8 or 9 wins. Honestly, the Saints could win 12 games just because of A, how bad the division is, and B, the rest of their schedule is not that difficult. And I could be making this up, but I feel like they have the easiest strength of schedule in the entire league. Again, double check that, but I think that is the case. So could they win 12 games and have like a top 5 record in the entire league? Sure. I mean, Derek Carr's won 12 games in a season before. You've still got other players on there. Cameron Jordan is awesome. That defense is criminally underrated every season, but they're going to rise. They're going to be sneaky risers in record. They're not actually going to be that big of a deal in the playoffs, in my opinion. The New York Jets, I'm going to put them here for a second, but allow me to explain. I was out on them more than like anybody that I'd ever encountered. I was saying that Aaron Rodgers was 26 in quarterback rating last season. The offensive line isn't good. The defense ranked 2nd in points allowed last season, but it ranked 30th the season before. And on average, less than 4 teams across the last 4 seasons repeat as top 10 defenses. So the odds were against the Jets being as successful on defense once again. The reason that I am starting to warm on them a little is, first of all, obviously, like you can see right here, I'm down on the Buffalo Bills, and one of those 2 teams will win the let me get this back, sorry. Either the Bills or the Jets will win the division. I mean, there really should be no doubt about that. But the Dalvin Cook acquisition for me, it's not so much that it changes their Super Bowl trajectory, but I was worried that the Jets weren't even going to make the playoffs because their start to the season is brutal. Like they could have, and they still could go 2-6 or 1-7 to start the season. But with Dalvin Cook coming back, Breece Hall tore his ACL last season. We didn't know if he was going to be ready to play or if he did play, in what capacity, what health percentage he was going to be at. With Dalvin Cook in there, he's going to be fresh, obviously. I mean, the healthiest time of the year for everybody is the start of the year. So he's going to be fresh and healthy. He's going to give you at least a month of him playing at his absolute best. And when he's at his best, he's a top 7, top 5, maybe running back in the entire league. That's going to take a lot of pressure off of Rodgers. It's also going to help cover for some of the holes in the offensive line. So my concerns about the Jets making the playoffs have sort of dissipated. So I'm warming up on them a lot more. Do I think they're better than the Bills? Probably not, but I think the Bills' hype is also a lot higher. So I guess I'll put the Jets here, and I know I said I'll reorder the tiers at the end, but I think the Jets are at the top of my everyone calm down tier, as in like they're close to moving out of it, but I'm going to leave them there. The Raiders are in the Caleb Williams tier. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not good, and he's also very injury prone. Devontae Adams doesn't want to be there. He's been flirting with other teams. I think he could be traded at the deadline. They've got some talented guys on their defensive line, Tyree Wilson, Max Crosby, Chandler Jones. They're going to get after the quarterback, but other than that, they don't do a whole lot else that well on defense. So we're going to leave them in the Caleb Williams tier. The Eagles, out of respect, got to put them second here. I'm really just not listening to what I said of waiting to the end to organize them. They're Super Bowl contenders. They're probably the best team in the NFC. Granted, Jalen Hurts has to continue to play at an MVP level. The defense also, it didn't get lucky, but the standard it set last season, the 2nd most sacks in NFL season in league history, third best turnover differential in the league. Those things, they're good indicators of success within a single year, but they're also very hard to replicate year to year. So you're counting on a lot of things to go right for them. Also, you lost Javon Hargrave, big defensive tackle. Jalen Carter has a lot of talent, but how's he going to perform as a rookie? You got to wait and see. But with all that being said, they are supremely talented, so they're rightfully Super Bowl contenders. The Seahawks here, this might surprise some people. They're legit threats. They're legit threats to me. Now, Geno Smith fell off over the last month, 5-6 weeks of the season last year, but up until that point, he was an MVP candidate, and now he's got another playmaker in Jackson Smith-Njigba joining Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They've got a nice running game with Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. I know they've had their injury concerns in the offseason, but I do think that they could actually get involved in the Jonathan Taylor sweepstakes if that is a legitimate situation. I think the Seahawks would be a good landing spot for him, and if they get Jonathan Taylor in there, then boy, that offense would be one of the 3 or 5 best in the entire league. And then the defense, Tariq Woolen had a really good rookie year. You draft Devin Witherspoon with a top 5 pick. You brought Bobby Wagner back to be the captain of your linebacking core, guy that's been to and won the Super Bowl and knows the Seahawks culture, the 12th man. I think the Seahawks will be really good. Absolutely love them. And if I'm looking at a long shot pick here, as far as teams in the NFC, so we've got the Eagles, the Seahawks, the Cowboys, and the Niners. The Eagles are going to be up at the top of the odds here. You can get the Niners for plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl, or you can get the Seahawks for plus 4,000. From a betting perspective, I think the value is here on the Seahawks, so I would be taking that. The Broncos, they're going to back themselves to be wild card hopefuls. I think they're probably going to be closer to bad but boring. Russell Wilson's been in the decline for 2.5 years, but Sean Payton's can help him improve somewhat. I don't love their weapons. The offensive line is hit or miss. The defense was probably top 5 last year, but they were put in a lot of bad situations by the offense. That being said, I don't see them being a top 5 defense this year. Maybe top 10, top 12. We'll leave them wild card hopefuls. I think they could win 7 or 8 games, and that would put them close, but not quite in. The Buccaneers are going to be bad but boring. I don't trust Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask for very obvious reasons. They've got a couple of cogs left from that Super Bowl roster, but they probably don't want to be there. The Titans, I will put in sneaky risers just because you've got Derrick Henry, who's an MVP candidate. You've got Mike Vrabel, who's a really good coach. They had the best run defense in the entire league last season. The Titans did. Also brought in DeAndre Hopkins, who might not win you a game, but he's going to make you a lot more competitive in games that maybe were going to be big losses. At least they're going to be close. They're going to be in the balance. The problem for the Titans is they don't really have a solid quarterback situation. It would actually help them in the short term to leave Ryan Tannehill in there, even if in the long term you probably want Malik Willis or Will Levis to start. Their pass defense is the big concern. They've been bottom 7 in the last 4 seasons. They gave up the most passing yards per game last year. So you got to watch out for that. The AFC South this week, I think they could win 7-8 games and maybe be a sneaky riser. Just like the Washington Commanders, I think maybe could be a sneaky riser. The Commanders are tough because I'm down on the Giants, like I said. So is it possible in a weak NFC they make the wild card? It's possible, but it's very possible that they're bad but fun. I mean, they've got great weapons like Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson Jr., Antonio Gibson under the tutelage of Eric Bieniemy. It could be a very fun unit, but then they could also be bad and boring because Sam Howell just ends up being trash. And maybe the problems with Bieniemy, the chemistry isn't there and they don't develop. I'm going to leave them in sneaky risers though. I have faith in Eric Bieniemy after the work he's done with the Chiefs. The defense, most importantly, with the Commanders is pretty much top 10 every season. That front line of Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Chase Young. I like the Emmanuel Forbes draft pick. Cam Curl's a really good safety. Jamin Davis, good linebacker. I'll leave them sneaky risers, but like I said, I think the Commanders have the most variance of any team on this list. And then the last team is the Texans. They're in the Caleb Williams tier, and sorry to CJ Stroud, but honestly, if the Texans do get the worst record in the league, I would trade CJ Stroud, probably get a first-round pick for him, and I'd be able to get Caleb Williams. I have Will Anderson from last year's draft, and I'd have another first-round pick. So, I mean, that's what I would do. Let me reorder these now. So, I think the Bengals are a bigger Super Bowl threat than the Eagles are, but because the Eagles made it there last year and Burrow is injured to start the year, I'll leave this tier as it is. And honestly, I'll leave this next tier, legit threats, as it is. I really want to promote the Ravens, but I can't do that. That wouldn't be fair. The Lions, without a doubt, the worst team in this tier. The Niners are probably the best. Yeah, the Niners are probably the best team here. Yeah, we'll leave that like that. Wild card hopefuls. I'm highest. No, well, how do I say this? The Chargers are a better team, but I have the most optimism in the Steelers. But they are behind the Ravens and the Bengals, so we'll leave it like that. Like I said, I love the Bears. Matter of fact, I'll promote the Bears because I think they're going to win the NFC North. I'll put the Dolphins over the Browns if this will cooperate. I'll put the Vikings over the Browns. And I'll put the Broncos over the Browns. And we'll leave it like that. Okay, Saints are guaranteed top of this tier. Do I think the Titans are better than the Commanders? Probably. Sam Howell's a big unknown, but then again, the Titans could easily go to Will Levis, who's an even bigger unknown. I like the Commanders' defense better. We'll leave it like that. The Giants, are they the best team here? Yes, they are. The Colts, I think, are going to be, as far as fun goes, I think the Colts are the second. The Colts are the most fun team here, but we'll leave them second. The Panthers will be better than the Falcons as long as Desmond Ridder is playing, so we'll leave it like that. Patriots are going to be the best team here. The Rams. Are the Packers better than the Buccaneers? Maybe. I don't really. It's too close to call. Cardinals are going to be the worst team in the league. Raiders will be the best of this tier. So there we go. That's my final tier list. Guys, what do you think of this? Drop some comments. Let me know. What teams would you promote? What teams would you demote? Also, just let me know if you enjoyed this style of video, some other content as we prepare for the NFL season. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Like the video if you enjoyed. Like I said, comment. Let me know what your thoughts on the tier list are. And I'll be back very soon, and I will see you guys next time.